Okay, next question. True or false? This year, sell before a potential housing crash, or I'll have to wait long until after it recovers. So a lot of people have kind of what I'll call a recency effect when they think about economic downturns. Here's the thing to understand about economic downturns is no two are exactly the same. Many people think that if we have a recession, that there's going to be a housing crash. And they think that because that's what happened in 2008. And that was really the most recent downturn other than kind of the very short-lived one we had at the height of the pandemic. And the thing to know about the housing crash of 2008 is that was really the asset bubble that triggered that downturn. So the question is, do we have an asset bubble in housing today? Some people are saying that, housing prices were up 20 to 30% over the last few years and that's creating this asset bubble. However, it's a different scenario today in the housing market than existed back in kind of that 2006 to 2008 time horizon. Essentially, ever since the Great Recession, which is the kind of what people refer to that period of time as, builders were very shy about over-investing. They didn't want to end up in that same situation again. At the same time, there was massive employment cuts during that period of time in the construction industry that never kind of fully ramped up again. And so what you had happen is for a period of over a decade now, we underbuilt. So there is essentially in the current environment, a true housing shortage. And that is part of what fueled, in addition to very low interest rates, the increase in housing prices. It's also fueled some of the increase in rents that you're now seeing, in addition to rising interest rates. And so the reality is that even if there was an economic downturn right now, it is highly unlikely that you would see a housing crash to the order of magnitude that we saw back in kind of the 2008 era. That is not to say that housing prices might not fall with very high interest rates that can put housing prices in general under pressure. People can afford less on the same income when interest rates are higher. So you are already seeing some softening. And what I mean by softening is like, we're not seeing double-digit housing price increases likely this year the way we have the last couple years. And that's a good thing because it makes housing more attainable and more affordable for more people. However, in order for housing prices to fall, you have to have a significant amount of homes on the market and nobody willing to buy them. And what we actually have right now is very few homes on the market. And why is that? Well, people are staying in their homes. The borrowers and mortgages that are outstanding right now are to extremely credit-worthy borrowers. We don't have kind of the false demand or inflated demand that we had back in the mid-2000s where people were giving mortgages without, income verification. They were giving zero interest or interest-only mortgages or floating rate mortgages that were going to reset and then price people out of their ability to afford a home and be forced to sell. Now, the one asterisk that I'll put around all of that scenario is that if people start losing their jobs to a significant degree, if we have a significant increase in unemployment, that's where you could see some people put in positions where they may be in financial distress and there may be some more forced selling. However, because of the labor shortage environment that we see right now, even if there is a recession and unemployment does increase, most people and experts are predicting that increase of being 1% to 2%, not going from all-time historic low unemployment rates to double-digit unemployment like we saw for that short period of time at the height of the pandemic. So all of that is my long-winded way of saying that you need somewhere to live one way or the other, right? If you sold your house, you're going to have to go pay rent, and rents are at all-time high rates right now. I don't have an expectation, and this is my kind of informed opinion. I don't have the expectation that there's going to be some huge crash in the housing market and that prices are going to fall substantially and that it's going to take a decade for them to recover. So if you are already in a home, which it sounds like because you're asking about selling, if you are already living in a home You already have a mortgage in place. If you put that mortgage in place within like the last, call it 4 or 5 years, you're locked into an extremely low mortgage rate, and that in and of itself is a significant asset. Excuse me, because anything you bought in the current environment, even if home prices fall, call it 5%, that higher mortgage rate is likely going to make it far more expensive than staying in your existing home. It's just the way the math works. So I wouldn't kind of necessarily try to quote unquote time the market on this, because I just don't see it playing out the way things played out back in 2008. It's a different economic environment. Mortgages are to far more credit-worthy borrowers, just because of everything that happened back in 2008. They're making sure that didn't happen again. And in general, there is still a housing shortage. Somebody's saying, yes, my mortgage rate is so wonderful. I love my neighborhood, but we're running out of room. So in that, like what you're seeing happen in a lot of cases right now because of that very scenario is people are choosing to, because they have equity in their homes, because home prices have appreciated significantly, people are exploring like adding on to their existing home, taking out a home equity line, using the equity in their current home in order to kind of fund those additions in order to, add on to your home. Now you want to be careful about that too, right? Because you never want to like invest in your home and beyond kind of the value of the neighborhood. You never want to be the most expensive house on the street. What I would say is like, just if you have a home and you're running out of space, like you have the benefit of having somewhere to live right now, be opportunistic, right? Like keep an eye on what's out there and what's available in the areas that you want to look at and be opportunistic about it. Mortgage rates have started to soften a little bit. They're down from their peaks at, I don't remember exactly where the peak was, maybe like in November. They were getting close to 7. I think now they're back around 6.5. So you can be opportunistic about it. And the other thing to know too is that even if you took out a mortgage today, there's always going to be the opportunity to refinance. So in the event there is an economic downturn and the Fed starts to cut rates again and mortgage rates fall again, you could always refinance and lower your interest rate at that point in time. So, I'm not saying don't go out and buy a house right now, but I'm also saying like, don't feel like you need to sell because, prices are going to fall 20% or something like that. The other kind of asterisk that I'll put on all of that is real estate is extremely local. So there are kind of local areas, and I would kind of highlight, especially on the West Coast, like tech-centered areas where we're seeing a lot of this economic pain center, where you're seeing a lot of layoffs in those sectors, where you've seen significant price appreciation well beyond kind of the national average. Those are areas where there's potentially the potential for more price compression than like what we may experience in a nation as a whole. And so in those markets, you might want to be more cautious and more sensitive to those things. But the best thing to do is, talk to local realtors, pay attention to what's going on in your local market. You can track home prices on Zillow and see the movement in local markets, and all of that will kind of give you a feel for what's going on. But I will continue to track housing data here. I will continue to share kind of what's happening with home prices. But the reality is that for home prices to fall, you need to have a significant number of sellers come to the market and buyers disappear. And so far what we've seen is there's actually fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer listings. And that's kind of a trend that's gone on for a while now. And that's largely due to a longer term trend that is both demographic, where you have millennials in that family formation stage looking to buy their first homes. At the same time, we've underbuilt for a decade and there is a widespread kind of housing shortage. So those are the factors at play in the housing market right now. The short-term phenomenon of low interest rates kind of helped boost housing prices, but that was also because fundamentally there's a housing shortage. So anyway, I hope that gives some insights and just some color to what's going on in the housing market. It is something we'll continue to track. And so you'll have the data to kind of make informed decisions, at least on a national basis, but remember that it's local.